Can somebody tell me some characteristics about skeletal muscle? Yes. Skeletal muscle is multinucleated. What else? Yes, Jake?
Striations.
There are striations, meaning they have stripes. What else is special about them? Where will you find them connected to? They're typically connected to bone. Are they voluntary or involuntary? They are voluntary. Is there anything else we can write about them? Alright. Huh? They are thread-like. The cells are thread-like. Alright, anything else? Okay, good. So what I'm going to do first then is I'm going to draw a bone that's attached to a muscle. So here we have the epiphysis of a bone. And here's the diaphysis of the bone. And muscle is attached to bone via what structure? Do you recall from your notes? So the bone itself has a layer of periosteum wrapped around it. The muscle isn't directly attached to the periosteum though. The muscle has an extension piece that attaches to the periosteum. So, any guesses? Tendon, there you go. So you have a periosteum layer, and the layer of the periosteum is actually going to intertwine with the tendon. So we're going to draw, pretend like this is tendon here. And it's attached and intertwined with the periosteum. And what we're going to do is we're going to enlarge the muscle. So here's your tendon, and we're going to zoom in on it. Probably do some labeling. So here's your bone. This would be your tendon that's attached to the bone. And this is going to be your muscle here, and the muscle is actually wrapped in a layer. The thin layer is called the fascia, and the fascia actually extends beyond the muscle. So let's say the muscle ends about right here, but the fascia keeps going so that it can connect to the periosteum. That means tendon is actually just excess fascia. The way I think of it is fascia is like a candy wrapper of like a Tootsie Roll. The Tootsie Roll would be the muscle, and then the fascia would be the wrapper. And you know how at the very end, the wrapper is twisted, and it sticks off at the end even though there's no more candy? So the tendon would be like the twisted end that hangs out, and then this would be the actual candy piece right here. So we're going to actually be cutting the muscle here so that we can look at it from the top view. So I'm going to go ahead and do kind of like a opening cross section right here. I'm gonna leave a little opening for something else. And technically, you have the fascia wrapped around the muscle. You also have a second layer right underneath the fascia wrapped around the muscle. So I'm gonna draw that second layer. This is pencil. So I'm going to try to draw, there's a fascia layer wrapped around the muscle itself. So I'm going to try to draw it to look like we're peeling the fascia layer off. I'm trying to show that we're peeling off this layer here. And this layer that you just peeled off would be the fascia. Can you guys tell I took art in college? I'm just kidding. They do teach art and anatomy class in colleges, actually. So you peeled off the fascia layer. Underneath, there's a second layer. And this second layer, does anybody remember the layer that wraps tightly around the muscle?
There goes. Is it the white stuff when you get meat? Like, you have to, like, rip it open?
You actually can see it on some meats.
It's, like, clear.
Yeah, it's see-through, so you can see the redness through it. So it's like a whitish tone. This would be the epimysium. And then so we have muscle, epimysium, and then fascia. So in the muscle itself, you're actually going to have a lot of these bundles called fascicles. And I'm going to label that fascicle. And a fascicle is essentially a bundle of muscle fibers. Notice that the fascicles have white space in between them. This isn't actually white space. This is actually going to be more connective tissue. So in between the fascicles, I want you to check your notes to see it's an extension of the epimysium. It's between the fascicle. It wraps around the fascicles. There you go. It's the perimysium. So in between the fascicles, you have perimysium. Now, inside of each fascicle, we said it's a bundle of muscle fibers. So let's go ahead and draw the bundles of muscle fibers inside the fascicle. So I'm just going to draw a bunch of little bundles here. So notice the fascicles, I drew these bundles, but there's actually white space in between those bundles. And in reality, the white space in those bundles have their own name because it's its own type of connective tissue. So the white space in between these muscle fibers is called endomysium. So I left a little bit of space because I'm actually going to draw one of the fascicles zoomed in. So we're going to draw one of the fascicles, and we're going to zoom in on it. And we're going to have a cross section of this fascicle. So draw it like this. I'm going to leave a little gap on the side here again. So technically, what is this elongated tube right here? This tube right here is a fascicle. Okay. Does that make sense? Is everybody okay so far? All right, so we just pulled one of those fascicles out, basically, from that muscle. We just pulled the whole tube out. The fascicle is actually going to have some blood vessels attached to it, so I'm going to use red to draw a blood vessel. So we're going to draw a blood vessel right here. Technically, you would want to draw it branching everywhere, and you would want to draw multiple, so you would draw branches, but I'm just going to keep it simple and leave it like that. So you have a blood vessel. I'm going to label that blood vessel. And then you also have innervation, which is where you have nerves controlling that fascicle. So I'm going to use yellow to draw a nerve. So nerves are actually kind of like beaded looking strings. And then at the ends, they have branches coming off of them. And that's my nerve or neuron. So if your brain is saying, draw the same thing she's drawing, draw the same thing she's drawing, that message gets sent down to through the neurons, which control the muscles in your hand, which allows you to draw what we're drawing up here. Okay? So inside of this fascicle right here, we're actually going to draw what's inside of a fascicle. Inside of a fascicle, you're actually going to have muscle fibers. So these are going to be your muscle fibers. We can label that here. Fiber. A muscle fiber is essentially a cell, one muscle cell. Notice in between the muscle fibers or cells, we have white space. What is this white space actually? Because it's not just empty. There's connective tissue in it. It would be, if you look back over here, so this right here, this fascicle is the same as this one. The white space in between this one is called endomysium, which means it's the same thing here. So you want to draw a little arrow there. This is endomysium as well. If you're like, I don't know where my arrows are pointing to, you can do a little caption like endomysium, the connective layer between muscle fibers. And then inside of each muscle cell, you actually have fibers, which means you have more circles inside of those. I'm drawing more circles inside of the muscle fibers. This is where it gets a little bit trickier. So we're going to take a muscle fiber and we're going to pull it out of that fascicle. So we're going to take one and we're going to pull it out. And let's go ahead and relabel this. This is a muscle fiber as well. Okay, and then we will take a look at the inside of this muscle cell tomorrow. We'll go ahead and start packing up.